Welcome to Let's Fly. I'm Susie Schumacher. Have you ever felt you just don't fit in where you're at anymore, but you don't know what to do? My guest, Dendy Smith, shares what it looked like to be a successful business owner, while her soul kept telling her something was off. We talk about what happens when work starts to repel you, why that doesn't automatically mean you're doing something wrong, and adult selfishness in a way that actually makes sense. Fear-driven versus self-love, and why that difference matters. And if you love animals, you're going to want to hear the part about Karen's awakening animal and how that connection helped change her entire life. Let's fly. Hi, I'm Susie Schumacher, and welcome to the Let's Fly podcast, where I dive into the real stories behind life's hardest experiences. The stories of people who showed up as themselves, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but they made the choice to keep going. Real stories, honest conversations, and how they found the courage to find hope. Let's fly! Hi Karen, thank you for being here. And today is going to be a good ride because it's going to be you sharing your story about what do you do when you don't feel like you fit anymore where you're at? And if you could start from the beginning and share your story about what you did when you didn't feel like you fit anymore.
Well, it's a very big statement, and I will quickly get to the adult version of that. But I will have to say that statement, as you just said it, it rang true for me even from when I was a child.
Okay.
There were many times where I just didn't feel like I fit. But it's true. I'm leading you to why what happened when I was an adult. But when I was young, I didn't understand why I didn't fit. I just didn't fit. A lot of times I worked really hard to try to fit in with my friend group when I was a kid. I saw and felt things maybe they were either didn't want to share or weren't experiencing the way I was. And so I kept a lot of myself quiet to try to fit in. So it's been a theme for a lot of it was a theme for a lot of my young life, like working really hard to fit into where I thought was the best place for me to be with the funnest people, to be in the know about what was happening, to get the right job, all that kind of stuff. So fast forward to my adulthood and the big how I didn't fit situation, which is what we're talking about today. That was a longer time coming. I thought about it, a longer time coming than the last few years before I changed my life. I owned a marketing and branding firm for 28 years with partners and lots of employees, and we did work on projects all around the country for hospitals and universities and tech companies. And for a long time, it was a pretty lucrative job, right? It was a really great job, and I was a boss.
Right.
And that was really cool for a while, but I started realizing, I'm going to say about 7 or 8 years before I really flew the coop. Where I fly, like your podcast name, that things just weren't working the way I wanted them to. I wasn't, again, that old feeling of like, this doesn't fit right for me was starting to come up. I realized I was starting to suppress what I was picking up, how I was feeling in the world, the way that I viewed things versus the group think. And that made me really feel out of sorts. And I think that this is really interesting for people listening, because you're feeling out of sorts in a situation that you have to keep going to every single day. There's a real reason. It's not you. It is you, but it's your soul you trying to tell you this isn't working for you. It's like putting all of you in a little box, or like I like to say, putting baby in the corner from that movie that I love, from Dirty Dancing, right? So
You're right.
I felt like I was baby in the corner for a while. And then my sweet cat, Hockey Puck, passed away in 2017. And he is what I would call an awakening animal. He really shook my world when he passed. He shook my world the whole time he was here anyway. He was teaching me all kinds of lessons. But when he passed, he just rocked my world. And that was a clincher for me, and realizing, oh my God, I don't fit here, because nobody really understands the depths of this loss. I mean, it was such a deep, deep loss. It was grieving for him on an epic scale. It really took me down for 6-8 months. And in that time, I'd already been teaching Qigong and doing energy work on the side and all that cool woo-woo stuff for about 20-25 years at that point. And when he passed, I thought, I know I have a two-way I know I have a conversation with him. I want to hear it more accurately and more clearly now that he's in spirit. And I was looking online, and lo and behold, up pops the Danielle McKinnon School out of nowhere, and a talk she's giving on animals on the other side. And there's no coincidences. This is the other thing when you're stuck in the rut. There's no coincidences when something kind of shows up in front of you that's not normal or not your
Okay.
regular, right? Go ahead.
Well, can
And
you tell just a little bit more what an awakening animal means?
oh, sure. My or their definition that they tell me, because I'm now an animal communicator, which is where this is all leading. And what they've told me is they come here, the higher consciousness soul is tied to our higher consciousness soul. We've made an agreement
Okay.
to work together in the 3D. So that soul comes in to not just be there for you and love you so you can rub their butt and feed them and call them your pet. They're here to shift your perspective in some way, wake you up in some way that you may not have perceived the world before them or yourself.
Okay.
So in this particular situation, Hockey Puck woke me up as perceiving that I was suppressing my true voice. He worked at this at so many ways. He got respiratory issues that I had to look at, chest and lungs and throat. He then ended up with hyperthyroidism, all in the throat, compression and stress in the throat. Then we balanced that, but then I still wasn't getting it. He got a frozen larynx, which is how he passed, because it was the ultimate message to me. And I did not create this. People don't think you're creating these sicknesses in your animals, but you have resonance. So
Okay.
they have resonance because you're supposed to both look at these things. So his frozen larynx really arrested me, and I realized, oh my God, I'm suffocating. And he's trying to tell me that if I don't speak up, speak my truth to myself, never mind anyone else, but to myself, I'm
Okay.
suffocating my own soul. So that's what that taught me. And then to come into that class, Animals on the Other Side, I was the second person picked out of 100 people in that talk for a reading, and there was Hockey Puck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, schooling me. It wasn't like, hi, honey, I miss you. It was like, get off your ass and do something, mom. And so, hope I can say that. And so I signed up for classes like almost immediately. And I had no idea where this was going, but I kept going and I kept working with him and learning to talk to animals. And I thought, this is the piece that I've been missing in all of my extra education around energy work and medicine and qigong and mediumship and all that stuff. This was what was missing. And so after I went through the whole professional program, which I didn't think I was going to do, again following Hockey Puck's lead as waking me up.
Right.
And by the end of that, in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, I got certified to be an animal communicator. And as we went into the pandemic, I also got certified to be a soul level intuitive coach, which is working with spirit guides and people to continue the journey of understanding their soul work and their soul purpose. And everything started to implode. And so I realized that, oh my God, the universe is really stuffing the turkey full until it explodes, for me to pay attention that if I don't shift who I am and what I go for what I believe in, I'm going to explode.
And were you in your marketing job? You were in a high level position with marketing.
Yeah. I was a co-founder and owner of a marketing and branding firm that was doing very big work around the country with two partners and at one point 12 employees.
Well, I think it's important to talk about that
Yeah.
too, because were you still in that position while you were doing this journey through what you needed to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to
So
let
I
people
was
know that
still
you were also a head honcho at a major marketing place. Okay. During
yes.
all this happening. Okay.
Yes, which is why the turkey was getting ready to explode. So, and the more I was getting into this stuff while I was doing being a partner in a firm, the more my energy was shifting, the more I was seeing how people were reacting to me differently, positively and negatively, right? Those who thought it was cool and I was giving them permission to wake up something in them, they all were like asking me a lot of questions. Those who
So
were
you were
really
sharing. Okay.
a little, maybe a tenth of what was happening for me, but yes, I was sharing at lunch and when people would ask, but those who really were not happy with me were really getting angry with me, and it was really and my energy was repelling them, and their energy was repelling me because our energies were not in sync anymore. And that's another sign. Like if you're working with if you're in a life and in a situation where all of a sudden everything is repelling you, that's another sign to listen to your soul. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not bad. You're shifting and changing, and it's time to look at that and embrace it. So that's
Can you
eventually what
share
I did.
your definition of soul?
So, okay, my definition of soul, which comes from a deep understanding and study of Qigong and energy medicine for 25 years now. And I have to caveat this with I studied with Master Owen Wei, who is an amazing Chinese Qigong master. And I have come to realize that the soul is this infinite soul spark that never dies. It is the true who we are if we weren't in a human situation. So I'm a soul having a Karen's experience in this iteration, but I'm also Karen, literally Karen in this iteration. So I'm balancing the infinite and the finite of my experience because I am finitely Karen in this 3D world as a person, but my soul is also infinite. So that's we get a lot of struggle in ourselves because of that. The soul carries with it three layers, three parts. One part is the battery pack to be attached into this 3D world. When that battery pack runs out, we exit the building, right? We leave the body behind. We aren't fueling the body. The second part is our intellect, our emotions, our essence of who we are in this individuality and the way that we think and express ourselves to the world and the choices that we make. And the third part is that infinite database knowing of every single being we've ever been, so that we keep accumulating experience and knowledge and hopefully making choices toward a better, more healthy vibration.
I love that. Now I had to have a share because there's a lot of talk about soul, and I think it's a little more common now than it was before. But that way you break it down, everyone can get it. So thank you.
Yeah.
I had to get that little nugget in.
No, I'm glad. Ask away. I love this kind of conversation.
Well, and when you said repel, let me ask you this. So you know someone's, I guess the other person is reacting a certain way. How did you handle that part? Because when you're growing and you feel like something's happening in a good way and people are trying to shut you down, how did you handle that?
I'm gonna be completely honest. I was human, not well at first, right? It brought up my feeling not good
That's
enough,
real.
right? I got angry. I fought back. Maybe I know I thought maybe I should behave to them like they're behaving to me and see how they like it. Well, that didn't work. That just made them angrier at me because that's not who I naturally was. And I was told that's not the nice person that we know you are. You're behaving badly because they didn't ever see that they had a hand in this equation. So I became the even worser person, if that's a word. And I had to do soul searching to say, wait a minute, that's not, I left behind my level of value system by doing that. So it took a lot of work for me to come back to who I was and let go of, if you do this to me, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to react angrily if you say XYZ, even though that's not nice. Instead, I had to come back to a place of really calming down and being able to create some distance energetically between me and the situation so that I could at least not speak, right? And that got me in trouble too because I wasn't saying anything, and then they'd get mad because I wasn't speaking. So there's a lot of dynamics, just the universe providing to me. Do you see, no matter what angle you take, you don't fit here anymore.
But that's it. So some people think that when nothing's working, that means don't do it anymore. And when you talk about you are leaving your own value system behind, what is your value system?
So at its highest level, and this is where, I really tried to work hard around what's my ego driving me to think about this versus what's a real heartfelt soul approach to being. And my value system, if I'm being true to my heart and soul, is that I don't attack someone because they're angry. I don't get back at them because they might be off balance and angry themselves. Because when somebody's really coming at you and they're angry, it's because they're off balance and struggling too. So from a higher soul consciousness, if I can say, okay, can I witness this and try to understand, not become a doormat, it's totally different, but can I witness this and understand and take a breath and have compassion and also take care of myself, then the way I remark, behave, what I do next is born out of trying to at least be kind.
That's
As opposed to
power.
going at you. you know?
Well, but I did, so when you started doing that, well, you realized first that your
Hmm.
values were being messed with.
Yeah.
And when you decided, when you had that awareness, and I mean, it's human to react when someone's attacking us, but then when you got to the point where that's not serving me,
Right.
what was the next thing that happened?
So the next thing that happened was the ego mind took the persona took over again and thought, I'm afraid to tell them I don't fit here anymore. They're going to be mad at me. I have to give them a long lead time. I need to prepare them. I need to do everything I can so that they don't see me as the bad person for abandoning them, because that's my childhood.
They
Right?
don't see me as the bad person.
Yeah, right. For abandoning them. So I did everything that I started doing everything I could, racking up extra clients, setting up accounts, thinking I would give them like a 2-year notice. And then I had my own soul coaching session with my teacher, Danielle McKinnon, because she's brilliant. And in 30 minutes, she said, you're falling into your own negative beliefs, Karen. And here's what I can see is going to happen. And it's literally what happened. A few weeks later, I was in a meeting with them and it spilled out of my mouth. And exactly how she said, I wasn't planning on it. I was actually trying to have it not happen because she said it was going to. So I wanted to not believe it was true. And it still happened. So I gave them a little over a year notice. It was during the beginning of the pandemic, which, we were shrinking anyway. All businesses were shrinking at that time.
Right.
We were down to just, 5 or 6 of us from the 15 that we used to be back in the old days, lopping along, but it wasn't the way it used to be. And I just thought, this isn't going, I don't know, this pandemic is really like a shaker-upper, And for me, it was a way of getting my freedom.
Well, it could be something that's landed with me was, can you go back to when you were talking about, I didn't want to be seen as the bad guy, and abandonment
Mm-hmm.
goes back to childhood. Are you
Yeah.
comfortable sharing what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I can share a little bit about that.
I think it's important for
So
people to understand that because that's a pretty big piece.
yeah. So I will say from the intuitive guided soul work that I do, when we are at our soul is at its most vulnerable state in the between the ages of 0 and about 6 years old, our soul is trying to operate in its most vulnerable lack of control perspective, right? We don't have language at first. We can't take care of ourselves. We don't know how to feed ourselves. We don't know how to clothe ourselves. We can't demand for people to listen to us and so that we can create our own stability. And so, especially when we're that young, when stuff happens, it shakes up our belief in ourselves in some way. So for me, I was 6 years old when my parents got divorced. My sister was 4, my brother was 6 months old. But that was after, 3, 4 years of tumultuous energy that I could feel building around not feeling safe and not feeling like I could ever do enough to keep everyone happy in my family so that they would stay together, so that we wouldn't be left, right? We wouldn't be left, or I wouldn't feel abandoned, but it happened anyway. So for me, the big shock to the system was I can't at that age, I'm not safe, supported, and protected because the adults like abandoned me and they split up, and it was a very bad split up, and there was a lot of negativity there energetically. We ended up living with my dad, not my mom, which is a whole nother thing for a little girl, right? At that age to not have their mother. And the me trying so hard to keep them as friends, even after the split up, didn't work. So no matter what I did to try to fit in and make them come back together as a whole, I couldn't do it.
Even though it was that tumultuous environment, there still was that pull to
Mhm.
fix it and keep them
Yeah.
together.
Oh,
Wow,
sure. Yeah. And I
that's
think
awesome.
when we're at our most innocent at that age, we don't know yet about jealousy, malice, premeditated evil too clearly, right? So between 0 and 6, are we selfish? Yes, because we want what we want. We're crying, we're hungry, we need in the moment. But that's focused on self. I wouldn't call it selfish in the way that we do as adults, right?
Right.
And when those desires are met with kindness and support and a way of being when you're little, you learn that it's okay to ask for what you need, but in a way that you don't hurt anyone. But when you don't get that support when you're really little, you learn the only way to get what you want is to amp it up even more. And that's when this adult selfish thing comes in that we see as negative.
Well, that's fire, what you just said. Where
Yeah.
as a child. Okay, can you say that again? Because I think
I don't know if I
that
can. Okay, not in the same way. Okay, so when we're little, we are
right,
definitely in the present moment, like an animal, right? We
right,
live in the present moment. So we know what we need moment to moment. And there isn't the self-judgment around asking for it. If we're afraid, we emote that we're afraid. If we're hungry, we say we're hungry. If we're angry, we throw stuff. It's just an outcome of the energy in us. And if adults at that time weren't going through their own stuff, because they are, which is why this happens, and I'm not negating, I'm not telling people as adults that you're terrible for not noticing this in children, but if we slowed down and understood that every single behavior a child represents some out of balance sense of safety, if they're enough, if they're loved, and if they're worthy and deserving of being here, that existing, then we wouldn't school them so harshly for their behavior. We'd help give them what they need and then educate them on how is a kinder way to ask. Because you're safe, you are loved, you are deserving of being here, and you are enough just the way you are. But we don't do that with children. And so the adult version of the word selfish starts to come into play into our teens and into our adulthood with a lot of anger and resentment attached to it, which is why we over emote thinking it's the only way we're going to get any help. We manipulate because we think it's the only way to create our own safety, right? Things like that. We act out, right? And push everyone away because we're angry that they don't see that we deserve to be here. So there's a lot of scenarios that start to happen in the adult kind of selfish world that takes us out of the truth of it, which is it's okay to be selfish when you're coming from a place of self-love,
right.
but we're not at that point.
But what those words that you just shared though gives people some perspective versus I had a hard
Right.
childhood, so now I'm not happy as an adult. I mean, that was
Right.
what you just shared is really helpful because it's
Yeah.
clear and it's not, it is what it is, but without any
Yeah.
kind of judgment.
And so when I finally understood that, and I understood that about myself, and I realized I can't, so the other people around me when I was working and deciding to leave, their reactions were born out of their childhood. Their fear of saying, their fear of being connected to me, their fear of the unknown, whatever it was their childhood. So instead of me lashing out the way I did originally, which was ego, I just took a breath and was like, I have to go be me, and they have to learn what they have to learn from this on their own. And I wish them well, but I can't stay because the animals were supporting me and moving forward. Because as I was going into the pandemic and my little website was up as part of my professional class, we had to do that. I was getting clients and I was getting referrals and I was getting booked. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually working.
Wait, clients, so be clear what the clients were booking for.
They were booking for animal communication sessions with me where we would go on Zoom, and this is what I do now. We work on Zoom together and we connect in with your animal. It doesn't matter if they're alive or in spirit, at their higher soul level. And they talk with their human about what they're seeing, why they're with them in this world, what a behavior might actually represent, what energy is going on around them, that this is their way of expressing. You need to pay attention, like as if you were a 0 to 6 year old child, because they live in the present moment. And
And
so
that
their
was around
behavior,
COVID, right?
yeah. And a lot of people were
Okay.
adopting rescue dogs and cats and going, now what do I do with them? So I was getting a lot of
But it's
clients, you know?
interesting how the timing, especially
Mm-hmm.
the need for your grace and your skill,
Yeah.
talent for that.
Yeah. And so,
That's good.
yeah, a year or so later into the pandemic, I left my company behind and have been doing this for, gosh, I guess 4 years now, coming up on four
And
years
when
full
you,
time.
well, how did you know that you had that gift?
So basically, I mean, we all have this gift. I have to say, every single person is intuitive. And when I bring a new client through the meditation to connect with their animal, they feel something. 9 times out of 10, they're feeling what they thought they didn't realize was their own intuition. And they're feeling their animal's connection to them in a way that either blows their mind, makes them cry, shifts their perspective in that instant. So I love that because the animals are always trying to communicate with us, and find them when we settle down and lighten up, we can feel the frequency that they're at. And now we're in the zone with them. Holding that zone is what I learned to do. Sharing in that zone back and forth is what I learned to do. But we all can do it. And So they'll share about their behaviors because of a medical energy background in Qigong. They'll highlight the meridians and the organs and maybe where they might be depleted to bring to a veterinarian or a holistic practitioner to help correct or rectify or do tests around an area that might be missed. So that's really cool too.
But what I love is it sounds like it's also some coaching through
Yeah.
the because people probably are all down for tell me what's going on with my dog, not so much I'm ready to find out what I'm doing. So that's awesome. It's 'cause I
Yeah,
think
and
that connection comes up to the animals. Yeah.
yeah, it does. And I love it because if it comes up through the animals, people will at least try to listen,
Right.
right? So it's really cool the way the animal has their finger on the pulse of who you are, whether you like it or not. So if you listen to them, they feel like they did their job. And they feel so happy that your energy is shifting because you're starting to be nicer to yourself, which means you're not emitting all this extra cortisol and stress and energy that they have to deal with that then yields to some of their crazy behavior. So then they lighten
Right.
up a little bit. So everything starts to change health wise, emotion wise for us and the animals when we start to pay attention to what they're highlighting for us.
Have that awareness.
Yeah.
And so so you started getting clients and started booking, I just have a question where you were going through this huge shift and there's
Mm-hmm.
people out there that still want to do it, but they're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And things started to click for you.
Yeah.
But share how they would just, if it doesn't start happening right away,
Right.
when you have the awareness, what do you suggest someone does to keep in the state of love and not fear?
So, one thing is you don't have to throw out one thing to do another. I think a lot of people freak out because they think if I start to learn this and it doesn't work, I can't put food on the table, right? There's that kind of a fear. It's real, right?
Yeah.
Changing your life is scary. And this level of change isn't for everyone. So having faith in your own sense of where you're being guided comes from a place of finding a way to meditate, to have peace, to have fun, and to understand that you're going to be straddling a couple of things at once for a while so that you can let the universe help shake it out for you. I never, when I started this, thought this is where I would end up. I
Really?
did this because I wanted to talk to my hockey puck because I was so distraught. I was stuck under the table crying for 6 months, like literally with his bed pad. So I did this because I wanted to, when I was doing my side job of doing energy work in Qigong and the animals were sitting next to the people, I could tell the person, hey, this is what I'm feeling about your animal too, so that they could get their animal help. I never thought this is what I would do when I first started.
That's interesting. Okay. So what
Yeah.
did you think you were going to do when you first started?
I thought I was going to negotiate with my partners a way of maybe working 3 or 4 days a week, shifting ownership of the company a little bit, maybe bringing extra partners, maybe selling the company, but still working so that I could negotiate my own buyback contract in a way that I wanted separately from them. I thought I'd be doing this, till I was in my mid 60s, but that wasn't to be, you know?
Well, I just think it's so cool that it was moving you to where you need to go, and all
Mhm.
we have to do is, I mean, you started paying attention, but I
Yeah.
love how even though you were paying attention, you still were like, I don't think this is going to happen. And I think that's
Yeah.
important for people to hear because
Yeah.
it takes time. And here you are, you have this amazing gift, and you're a complete badass coach and animal
Thank you.
healer. But even you didn't believe that this is where you would be. And I think I want to get that energy out
Hmm.
there that
Yeah.
it's okay to not believe, but it
Yeah.
isn't at some point. And I'll let you explain that where when the fear comes in, because here you were on your destiny and you know more than a lot of people and it still was getting a little stuck. So
Yeah.
when the fear comes in, what would you tell someone?
Yeah. So yes, going on your path and your destiny is dicey. It's not like, oh, get on the magic carpet and oh, we'll relax and float and look at all the pretty things and get there. That's not usually how it goes. For some
Right.
people, yes, it does, right? I mean, gosh, I wish that was for me. But getting on the magic carpet of your destiny is having faith. It's taking a breath and saying, I'm going to try this because I love this and I'm drawn to it, even though I don't know where it's going to take me, while I am okay with managing the rest of my life and finding balance. And there will be tests all along the way. There are tests all along the way. Do you really want this from the universe? Are you willing to speak up a little bit more? Are you willing to carve out a little bit, stay up a little bit later to get this done? Call in sick sometimes because you need the space. There are little steps, all tests all along the way where if you're up against the next fence of like, I feel like I got to climb over this fence and it's not just super easy, to just be okay with it taking a little while instead of negating yourself because you can't leap over the fence. This is where we get stuck. We think we have to leap over every fence. And when we can't leap over the fence, we shut ourselves down from the ego perspective, not the soul perspective. And then the ego goes, I told you you weren't good enough. I told you nobody's going to help you. Like that language from childhood starts to come back and we start to believe it again. And that's where you go, oh my God, there's that voice from childhood. I know that's not true now. It was true then, but it's not true now, but I'm still ascribing to it. So it's okay to be able to tell ourselves. And there were many times where I thought I was going to hyperventilate. I didn't know what I was going to do. I hoped my husband would go along on the ride with me because I didn't know if he was going to say, I can't do this with you, Karen. But I had to have faith in myself and come from a place of like explaining from a soul perspective my truth, right? As opposed to fighting against and preparing for the battle if he didn't believe me. I had to come at it from a very vulnerable place, which means we have to learn to be vulnerable and admit things to ourselves first. Even if you don't tell anyone else, you have to be able to tell yourself. And that takes a lot of courage.
Yes, it does.
To be honest with yourself.
I think that's the first step, don't you think, about
totally
that connecting and finding that out.
And that's where the animals are helping, right? That's totally where the animals are helping, because you can be 100% vulnerable with your animal. You know they're never going to judge you. They're always going to forgive you, and they're always going to be there for you. So as you're blubbering and crying and you're lost in your life and you're looking at your animal and they're putting their paw on you, or the cat's like trying to purr and sit on your chest, it's because they still see you and they want you to see you even though you're struggling. And so that's where our animals, in the presence of an animal, we can be more vulnerable with ourselves.
Well, it's that unconditional love.
Yeah. We can't get that anywhere else.
And when you talk about ego, I want to hear your explanation of ego.
Okay, so ego is that part of the soul's layer that needs to build up to operate in the 3D world. We can have a healthier ego where we still operate in the world from a place of, I know what I need to do. I can work in this world. I can see good from bad. I'm not going to give into that because that's not right for me. So you hear a lot of me in there, but it's not me from a place of narcissism or, overblown ego or underdeveloped ego, right? So the ego is part of the toolkit to be here in the 3D world. So it's not like we can't not have an ego, but we have to work with the ego, not let it drive the bus.
Well,
Does that make sense?
People need to hear that because sometimes it becomes this, don't ever let it talk. It has some purpose. So I love that explanation. Yeah.
And when you listen to it and it's part of your soul team in and of yourself, like me being Karen is part of me being Karen is I have the part of me that's just me, Karen, that has a view of the world and has judgments about things that I want to learn from. Like, why do I have so many judgments about this? Ego. Then I call up my heart to ask my ego, what do we? There's a lot of we going on in my conversations with myself these days. Like, what are we trying to do here? What do we need to learn from this? Because there's the soul part of me where I'm asking my soul to say, can you please help us? Can you help the me that's living in the 3D world have more clarity from a kind perspective? And I'm asking the ego, can you come to the table and explain it from the 3D world perspective so that I can learn from it as opposed to have it drive me?
I love that. It's like we're having a team meeting.
Yeah, I got to have my team meeting.
Ego.
Yep.
You guys each have a say.
Yeah.
I love that because that kind of brings down the pressure and the angst of it too.
Yeah.
I think because there's so much information about ego, and fear, but it really, what you just shared is you taking control of the situation.
Yeah.
And then also making a little light, like, let's have a team meeting.
Yeah.
But you're not going to I'm going to make the decision because I'm the boss. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you say you connect with your heart, what is the feeling in your body? Because I want people to hear. So there is a shift or some sort of
Hmm.
feeling you feel
Yeah.
that you'll see the difference if
Oh,
you
yeah.
are willing to practice it.
So the way I can explain it is for a long time in business, when I was in business and dealing with partners and people and life in a way where I thought I had to get out in front of what they might do to me, I was operating from the mind. And I could feel my mind racing, or I could feel extra pressure in my head. There was a lot of fast thinking going on. So a lot of my energy was up in my head to the point where sometimes I would get a tension headache. And when I would speak, I was trying to speak to get out information with such force, even if I wasn't yelling, because I'm not necessarily a yeller, I could be a loud talker, but my throat would constrict. So now I've got a headache and my throat's constricted, and I almost feel like I can't feel anything in my body below my shoulders, my shoulder blades, because it's all up in my head. And I noticed even my posture was like kind of angled forward. So a lot of stress and tension, right? When I started saying, wait a minute, I need to take a moment and see how I actually feel, not how I'm trying to protect myself, but what's behind all of this, I would sit back in my chair and take a couple of deep breaths. And as I took the deep breaths down into my abdomen, I put my attention into this lower center of my chest, like slightly below where the physical heart is, into the middle of the chest is where our energy of our soul actually resides. And so I would put myself in there and start breathing into that space until my mind started to settle and my throat started to relax. And then I would ask that part of my body, how else should I be looking at that? And sometimes it would come to me and sometimes it wouldn't, but just re-regulating myself dropped the pressure, dropped the stress, dropped the tension, released the vagus, because the science of it,
What?
the vagus nerve. So the science of this is also true in that the brain starts to overreact, overfire, lights up the amygdala. This is that Chinese energy medicine and science, same. Lights up the amygdala, starts firing all these messages that you have to, you gotta be in charge of, get ahead of this so that you don't die. Like that's the basic message. So then the vagus nerve, which starts in the head, goes all the way down the sides of the neck, into the chest, down across all the organs, starts to rebalance where all the energy is going. It takes it away from certain organs, sends it into the adrenals, and we get into that fight or flight mode. And that really can really create a lot of imbalance in our emotions and in our body, especially if we keep doing it over time. It depletes us. So resetting all of that down where it belongs is really important before we start rethinking, refeeling. I like to say, go from thinking to feeling, if you can.
And if someone is just starting out with their practice of self-care, as we wrap this up, and I hate that it's ending.
We'll do another one if you want.
What is a statement that you think would be the most powerful way for them to start, that they could say to themselves?
Well, I would ask the animals, and I did. I kind of asked Dia and Noche before I even came on today, my cats.
Okay.
What is important for people to know about staying in balance or understanding themselves more? And it's funny because Dia just sat there and looked at me like, just be present. So she looked at me and she was in her little breadbasket pose. She literally took a deep breath and a sigh and just looked at me, and I'm like, oh right, yeah, take a breath and be present. Thank you, Dia. It's not, don't overthink the stuff. Just sit with what you're feeling till you understand you a little bit better. And Noche, he showed me a picture of himself sitting on my chest and purring, which is my sign that he's trying to get me back in my heart. So take a moment, come into the present, give yourself a little love in your own heart, and then ask yourself, what am I trying to work up? What am I trying to understand?
Thank you, Karen. Karen, thank you so much for your openness to be vulnerable and share your personal story, and also for all the wisdom that you've given in this episode. And if you're listening and you've been feeling that repelling energy, like things aren't working no matter what angle you take, let this be your reminder. It's not always a sign to try harder. Sometimes it's your soul asking you to pay attention. And if you need a simple place to start, Take what Karen's animal shared. Take a breath, come into the present, and then ask, what am I trying to understand? If this episode landed for you, stay connected and follow the show and keep flying with me. I'll see you next time on Let's Fly.